I don't know if this is working. Yeah? Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for being here now after lunch. That it was a bit of in a rush. As Daniel said, I'm Sergio from Quobis. I've been voice IP engineer in Quobis since 2012. And I'm also, in my free time, one of the developers of Bluebox-ng, which is a vulnerability scanner for voice over IP systems. Quobis is a company founded in 2006. It's based in Spain, but we have projects all over the world. And we are focused on voice over IP technologies, but we are getting a strong expertise in WebRTC since 2012. As I said, Bluebox-ng is an open source vulnerability scanner. It's written in Node.js. And we like to say that it's our 2 cents to security in voice over IP platforms. Jesus, my friend Jesus, is who started this project a few years ago, and I joined him last year. You can find the code in GitHub, and you can just install it by issuing npm install -g Bluebox-ng, and you can start playing with it. Some of the main features of Bluebox is modularity. We try to design it on a way that you could add modules on your own, on a very easy way, and you can integrate it with the rest of the modules we already have. Also easy to use. I don't know if you can see. It has a command line interface where you can see all the modules we have with a description of what they do, and so on. We also added a module to do automatic penetration testing, so we don't have to issue all the commands and be waiting for the results. We just define a profile with the things we want to check and how deep we want to dig, and we just execute the pen testing and get a report, a final report in JSON format and also HTML. And we also try to be RFC compliant. We're working on that. Okay, the modules we have at this moment, we divide 5 categories. The first, we have some typical networking tools like ping, traceroute, whois, and also an mmap wrapper, so we can do general network scanning. Proper pen testing tools like different protocols and applications, brute forcing modules like HTTP, SSH, and SNMP, also DNS, and then the SIP modules where we can just do SIP scan, brute forcing for enumerating new users, SIP users, sorry, trying to crack the passwords, doing denial of services attack, and so on. Lately, we added a lot of modules related to asterisk manager interface, so we can brute force looking for user and password, and once we get access to it, we can issue all the commands that it allows us to do to get some configuration information or changing parameters. And finally, we have other modules, and I would like to highlight the automatic auto VoIP, that is the automatic pen testing module. Okay, now to start talking about pen testing, all of you would know what it is, but I would like to add these 2 definitions. The first one, a penetration test can determine how a system reacts to an attack, whether or not system defenses can be breached, and what information can be acquired from the system. So what we try to do is check how our platform would react if it had to face a real attack. The other one, penetration testing, is the simulation of an attack on a system, network, piece of equipment, or other facility. So I like to say that it's like a fire simulation where you have to check that all the protocols and everything you have defined about your security is working as you expect. So there is no standard methodology for pen testing in voice over IP, like we have always, for example, for web applications. So I defined three pen testing phases, 3 steps. The first one is information gathering, the scanning and analysis, also known as enumeration, and then vulnerabilities and exploitation. The first step would be information gathering. So we need to collect as much information as we can about our target. Sometimes we don't have any information when we start a pen test. We only know the name of the company, maybe the domain. Other times we have a list of IP addresses we have to analyze. So we have to get all the information about the company without triggering any of the alerts. So instead of starting by straight analyze their network, we check what we can find on internet. So we have a couple of modules for Shodan to check what Shodan has indexed about that company, their IP addresses, and what services they have on internet. Also check their DNS domains. Maybe we can find some zip.domain.com or something that can take us to where they have the VoIP platform, and also Whois to know who is behind the registration of the domain name. Here, I don't know if you can see, it's a bit small. I'm issuing Shodan search module. We are searching for Kamailio, and we find a whole list of Kamailios that are indexed by Shodan. In this case, we need an API key to be able to use Shodan. And with the free account, you only can get 1 page of information, so we have about 10 or 20 results, but we could get even more. There we can see some Kamailio 3.3.4, another version of Kamailio that we could analyze. The other module I talk about is Shodan host, so we could search straight for an IP address and see if they have zip services or other type of services on Shodan. Once we have all the information we start scanning and analyzing our target. So we try to find attack vectors and discovering weaknesses about our target. Some modules we have for this. Zip scan to scan the zip services to try to find out if they have asterisk or other zip servers. We can also use Nmap to know what other services they have, and then, for example, exploit search or Shodan exploits to search for specific versions, what vulnerabilities they have, and if there are some exploits we can use. Here, we are doing a zip scan of IP range, in this case only 5 IPs for make it shorter. We just select the range. In this case, we chose to do a UDP using the port 5060 and sending a zip options, but we could use also other transport protocols like WebSocket, TLS, or TCP. We could send any type of zip method instead of options we want, and we select a couple of parameters, and then we wait for the results. In this case, there is only one IP address that answers us to the zip request, and here we see that it's a free PBX 2.8, and we see the zip message we got in response. So once we have this, we can use the exploit search module, type in what we just found, that is free PBX 2.8, and get the list of all the vulnerabilities that are registered for it. We can see vulnerabilities registered in many types, in many different databases of vulnerabilities, like ExploitDB, or, for example, there we see that one has an exploit that we can use. we have also information from other databases like Security Focus and so on. The last step would be vulnerabilities and exploitation. So now we have the information. We want to know if it's really vulnerable to that, if they made their job and they install or deploy some security measure so they could prevent, even if, for example, now we found free PBX, but many of the vulnerabilities might be related to the web interface. And maybe they have opened the C protocol, but not the HTTP, so that doesn't mean that it's vulnerable. So here we can check if we can really take advantage of that. Right now, we basically have brute forcing modules for SIP and other protocols, as I said before. cbrute X100 and 404 are two modules for enumerating SIP extensions, SIP users, taking advantage of two vulnerabilities that are already known. One is from 2009 and the other one from 2011. That according to the SIP response, we can decide if that user really exists in the server. And also a denial of service module. Okay, bringing all together. So we don't want to be typing the commands, waiting maybe 2 hours for having all the response if we are analyzing a big system or a big network. So we decided to do a couple of approaches. The first approach was to add the auto VoIP module, so we can use different profiles like quick, regular, depending what we want, and we can create our own profiles. And then we can also use Bluebox as a library and develop our own scripts, our own programs to do what we need. So here, I don't know if you can see, it's a demo of the automatic pen testing module with a quick profile, because otherwise we wouldn't have enough time to see it. In this case, we only target one IP address, and then we see that we are scanning the target, we issue a ping, we send different transport protocol SIP packages to see what protocols they support. Then we try to brute force the extensions. There is a module, slow brute force, that means that we set up a delay between requests so we don't get blocked by the fail to ban or whatever. We also implement a small part of the SIP torture RFC, which defines ways to try to torture the SIP protocol. So maybe sending a SIP message with a content length negative or some to verify that they implement the SIP protocol properly. And we also issue a denial of service attack. In this case, it's a small one, only 50 requests to check if they have some blacklist system that they block us after a few wrong requests. When this finishes, it generates the final report in HTML, and we are going to see it now. That opens the browser in a JSON format, and we have all the information there. We have the list of vulnerabilities, all the results we got. We can check them from here. As we use JSON format, we can even parse it or generate our own report, our own format report apart from starting from this file. So, for example, here we see that we sent 49 SIP packages and they didn't block us. Or here what the SIP torture module did and the responses we got. All the ports that we checked with Nmap to see which ones are open and which ones are not. This would allow us also, if we find, for example, that they have the 5038 port for the asterisk manager interface, then that can lead us to check if we can access to it. Okay, and the other approach could be to do our own. This is a very basic example where we just require the Bluebox-ng module. We define some parameters like showdown key, the target host, and so on. And then we define we use a async JavaScript library to do the execution of our code sequentially. First, in this case, we check if we configure the showdown key. We do the showdown host request, otherwise we skip this part. Then we issue a zip scan against our target. From the results of the zip scan, we do exploit search to find out the vulnerabilities of that host. And then in this case, we are trying to enumerate the zip extensions or checking if it's vulnerable to that vulnerability. And in the end, we try to make an authenticated calls to check if it allows us. And in the end, we get the final report in a JSON format. So what this talk was about talking about continuous pen testing using Bluebox. So continuous pen testing basically is the pen testing we saw, but not doing pen testing once a year or twice a year. That doesn't guarantee that our network is secure right now. So basically it would be, in a perfect world, a 24/7 security auditory of our systems, of our platform. But why we would need this? I think traditional pen testing approach is not enough. As I said, companies just hire for a pen testing once a year or twice a year, but that doesn't mean that your network is secure tomorrow. Every day we get new vulnerabilities that are found and published. Our software is being updated. There are new software upgrades. Our configuration changed because we have to add new users, new services. Our network changed as well because we don't have, in a big network, we don't have control of everything. And also new services are implemented. For example, maybe we have a secure network, but then we want to add some voicemail server or some WebRTC service, and then we wouldn't know if that configured as we expected. So we have a lot of work to do. This is a small bit of our roadmap. We would like to create a web interface for this tool. We like to improve the reports generation, maybe exporting as PDF or other formats. We want to add more attack vectors. We also would like to being able to, all the exploits we found about our target, we would like to be able to exploit that and to launch exploits from the tool. I would like to be able also to, while I do a pen test, to be able to configure that it records a zip trace of all the process so I can analyze it later. And would be nice also to have a proper documentation and testing framework, so when we change a module or a module, we can be sure that we didn't break anything else. So we are also looking for help. I encourage you to help the way you want or you can, maybe testing it, reporting bugs, or if you want to collaborate with the project. It's open source, as I said at the beginning, and you're more than welcome to collaborate. So if you have any questions.
As we could see during the dangerous demos, it's hard to find Kamailio. We are pretty hidden down there. I will show why in my talk and how you can do it. But yes, security, it's a big concern in telephony, at least as long the business model is charging by minute, because that means its source of money. So, anyone with a question? I have Matt from Asterisk.
So actually, I think that's a really great project, and I think you guys are doing some really cool stuff. We actually do a lot of SIP stress testing using our test suite on Asterisk as well, and it kind of checks for maybe some similar things to try to catch things before they go out in the wild. Have you guys looked at any? I noticed you had 2 tests for 2 old security vulnerabilities that checked some disclosure kinds of things that had been fixed in Asterisk. Have you actually, I mean, please don't actually say what they were if you did, but have you uncovered any security vulnerabilities in the process of actually developing and using the tool?
Okay, for example, the vulnerabilities I showed for the enumeration, I know it's old vulnerabilities, but there are many servers online that are still using very old versions. You can still find Asterisk 1.2, 1.4. So right now we haven't implemented a lot of vulnerabilities that are discovered more recently, but we can. That's one of the things we want to do, to start adding more current vulnerabilities we find, or being able to launch the exploits that are published. But I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Sergio. Thank you for coming and showing.